it's probably one of the number one things talked about in this country. So yeah, it's a really, really dark, sad situation going on
here. Do you think Ireland, not Northern Ireland, but Ireland that's not, under UK rule, can they curb this before it becomes, do they have more autonomy, I guess? Because I know they're influenced a lot by Britain. I don't know how much, can they be spared?
No.
I guess.
No. So Northern Ireland is under UK law, and they are actively actually moving migrants to Northern Ireland. I know that there was recently a huge riot where they burnt down 3 houses in Ballymena because a girl got raped by 3 migrant boys. They were underage too. They were all underage. But this is the thing, is that it's not really focused on race or anything like that. The girl who got raped was a mixed ethnic, half African, half Irish girl. I think the locals care about the Irish, and they're worried about what's happening to specifically underage girls. And the thing about the Irish that's a little bit different from the English culturally is that the Irish actually go out and riot much more than the English do. I think the English are a little bit more passive with this stuff. So yeah, you saw huge amounts of violence when that riot happened. And yeah, I would say that the entirety of the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland is all in a really weird state right now. The other thing that's interesting in Ireland that I could highlight is that the Catholics and the Protestants have actually been joining in marches together to defend against this governmental migration habits that they're bringing all these people in. So seeing these people who would have been murdering each other and fighting each other in the streets 30 years ago joining in marches is pretty wild, because if you lived in Ireland that would not normally be the case.
Wow, that's really interesting. Every time there's a school shooting in the States, I go down the rabbit hole of dreaming about leaving. And Ireland right now is probably top of my list. But then there's this. So I don't know. There's always something that makes me think twice.
Yeah, it's a really sad state of affairs here. This is the thing, is that I could get a work visa out in the U.S. and just move my family out there. I live in the U.K. And that's what I think we're going to have to do, to be honest. I think that the U.S., because of the way that your culture functions, I think that because of your constitution, I don't think that it's possible for what's happening here to happen in the U.S. But with that being said, you guys have to be really, really, you have to pay attention to this, because I think that this is something that could easily happen to you guys out there. I think there's little rumbles starting, and I feel like the UK is generally about 10 years ahead with social movements, whether it's people that we agree with or disagree with. So I would say you guys got to pay attention to what's going on in the UK, because it very likely could happen in the US as well. I think that you guys are safer because of your constitution and the safety that it derives. But with that being said, I don't know. I'm severely worried about you guys too.
Well, what is it about the Constitution that you think makes a difference in this matter?
The Second Amendment.
So specifically what you're saying is...
Actually, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment together. Yeah, because free speech in the UK is gone.
Are you saying we're safer because we have guns?
I mean, yes, partially, but also the First Amendment, you have it in your Constitution. Free speech. We don't have free speech here. This is the problem, is that people that speak out about this get imprisoned all the time. They're in this country, in the UK, last year, there were over 12,000 people arrested, put in jail for social media posts.
I thought you also said that there are demonstrations every day about this.
Of course, yeah. People are still allowed to protest. But you have to understand how people are freaking out, yeah. But I mean, there's people being arrested left and right over this stuff too. There's lots of people being arrested during these demonstrations. There was a guy who just yelled at a police officer last year during the Southport. Part of it was a riot, but this guy wasn't at a riot. He was at a protest and yelled at a police officer about it. This is the guy, Axel Ruda Cabana, who murdered 3 girls in cold blood at a Taylor Swift dance party thing. And it's like a horrible story. And this older gentleman who was retired, he yelled at a police officer.
Wait, hang on a second.
And he got arrested.
He grew up at a Taylor Swift concert?
No, at a Taylor Swift dance party. It was like a little neighborhood thing. Multiple, I think 8 girls got stabbed, 3 were murdered. He almost beheaded one of the girls. They were like under the age of 10. Axel Ruda Cabana.
Who is that?
He is a Welsh choir boy from Rwanda. But that's how the government portrayed him as. They called him a Welsh choir boy and murders 3 girls. That's how all the news stories portrayed it. And then when his picture came out, because he became 18 right afterwards, everybody's like, yeah, Welsh choir boy. And just look his name up. You'll see the picture of him. But there was a guy, I mean, this is just one example of many, who he yelled at a police officer, and he was sentenced to 2 years in prison just for yelling at a police officer during a protest. And he ended up killing himself in prison because he had health conditions, all sorts of, heart problems.
Was that fellow who was the killer, was he born in England or in UK?
I believe that he was born in Wales, but he was the son of 2 Rwandan refugees.
So he's Welsh if he's born in Wales, right?
Yeah, of course. He's a Welshman.
Are you being ironic?
Sort of. But yeah, technically he's a Welshman, sure. I wouldn't say he's ethnically a Welshman. But, his background is Rwandan. But
You mean his parents are Rwanda?
Wait, do you think that Wait. Are you saying that a Welsh person? Wait. So if I went to Rwanda, no, do you know what? If I went to China and I had a child there with my wife who were both not Chinese, would you say that I have a Chinese child?
I cannot speak to China. I can speak to America because I'm American.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? America is a bit different because America is like a few hundred years old, and I actually think that, becoming an American is actually like a really great thing. But I mean, like the English and the Welsh and the Scots have like a 2,000 year history. So I mean, it would be sort of like in the, I would say British. I would say that he was a British man. Yeah. I wouldn't say he's necessarily ethnically Welsh, though.
I don't know what ethnically Welsh is.
Well, they have a huge history that spans thousands of years. You can look up Wales.
I understand that. But you seem to be resentful, basically, that they called a black guy Welsh because he was black.
No, they called him a Welsh choir boy. They called him a Welsh choir boy in the news, which is bizarre.
Well, they were being ironic. Again, that's what
after killing 3 girls and stabbing 8 others.
It's meant to be lurid. It's meant to be tabloid.
Okay, he's going to be our national news presenter and be a tabloid, then I don't think that they should be getting public funding then.
Why?
If they're going to be a tabloid, fine. be a tabloid, do what you want. But if they're going to actually try to provide accurate coverage of the situation, then I would say that they probably shouldn't be getting national funding.
I don't know. There's BBC gets national funding, the rest don't. I mean, it's a
Look, they were trying to minimize public anger. Okay, that is what
they
happened.
showed the picture of him, right?
It took them 3 months to put the picture up.
So the day after this happened, it's because he's a kid?
No, nobody knew what he looked like. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew anything for months.
Because he was a minor?
Yeah, he was 17. He turned 18 literally like a week after the...
Was that the reason why they didn't show the picture, because he's a minor?
No, I think that they specifically didn't show the picture because of the public backlash, which did happen, which I don't agree with. I don't think that you should go out and riot in a horrible situation like that. I'm totally against that.
I think what Ewan is pointing to is a trend with the media, and that happens in our country also. In fact, it did yesterday with the school shooter yesterday, where the media will lie by omission when the narrative doesn't fit what they want the narrative to be. So,
I mean, it took about 5 minutes for me to find out that he was a transgender person.
Yeah, but look at CNN and the New York Times, all their stories yesterday, they weren't talking about that at all. The other trend shoot...
5 minutes for us to know. Now, it wasn't even a day, it wasn't even an hour. And we got the manifesto.
Okay, so there was another shooter who was, this whole thing about every time there is a shooter and the left tries to say, oh, it was a right-wing nut, and the right tries to say, oh, it was a left-wing nut, that needs to end, because it's clearly more nuanced and complicated than that, and they're just mental people. But so it doesn't need to be a political football. But when you are a media editor, you should be posing to your reporters and your journalists, what are the natural questions that your viewer or reader are going to ask? And if you're leaving out things like, by the way, there's a huge meta trend that first-generation immigrants to England are exponentially more likely to commit crimes against persons. And by the way, you fail to mention that in the story, but if the perpetrator was white, that's in the headline every single time. Then while you may not be directly purporting a lie, you're certainly crafting the narrative to fit the pre-existing narrative that you want to put out.
Thank you, DeRosa. Yeah, specifically that. He eloquently said my exact thoughts.
I don't know if it's important that the person is transgender. It's interesting if it's important. Or, again, I don't know if it's important that the guy was black. Is black.
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe they're taking drugs that disrupt the natural endocrine systems in a person's body, and that affects more than just their physiology, and it affects their psychology.
Well, Elmer was on a call, but even though he's on a call, for the rest of the room, I do want to clarify this as well. Part of the reason why it was important that we found out that he was the son of Rwandan refugees is the fact that he had been, we have an anti-terrorist group, and this is the failure of the UK government. It's called PREVENT, and it's an anti-terrorism task force that investigates people to try to stop things like this from happening. He was referred to PREVENT 3 times before he did this mass stabbing of little girls, a Taylor Swift dance party thing. And in his writings, when he was in high school, he talked about how the Rwandan genocide should have never happened, and that the genocide should have been here. He said that multiple times. This is something this kid got sent to PREVENT 3 times and refused to investigate it, and then he goes to a party with children and he murders 3 of them and nearly beheads one of them. To me, come on. This is important stuff to talk about. The fact that the government failed so miserably in their basic duty of care to look after these girls whose lives are, they're either dead or the girls who got stabbed whose lives are forever changed. Like, this is basic stuff.
Ewan, I don't know if you guys talked about this before I got here, but I don't think most people in America know what the grooming gangs are in the UK and in Europe. I certainly didn't until you and I actually talked about it at one point.
It's starting to be talked about. I mean, I've been noticing. I listen to a lot of like U.S. news and stuff like that. I like to pay attention to what's going on in the U.S. And I've been seeing like I think even Fox News talked about it. But I'm starting to see like a major shift of Americans starting to look in our direction. And I know it's not like everyone. I know that there's a lot of people that still need to be sort of educated on it. But I really, really think that the microscope is starting to be put on the UK here. And it's really important that people do look into this and you tell your friends and you tell your family about it, because it's really scary stuff. It's not the amount of violence that's going on here. It's not just the amount of sexual assaults or things like that, the rates of it that have gone through the roof in the past few years. It's also the fact that the government is trying to put people who speak out about it in prison any chance they get. So it's a really scary time here, and this is why I want to get the fuck out of this country.
Yeah, and the only reason I said earlier, Darice, if you weren't here, I had noted while Ewan was talking, the only reason why I know about it is because, I spend an unhealthy amount of time on Twitter. And there are a lot, you can find, there are a lot of accounts of people, UK-based people, Londoners, British folks, families who are directly impacted, families who film their family members being arrested for, either protesting against the groomer gang, speaking out, being directly impacted because of loved ones. And not only that, you have a lot of people documenting what they call the two-tiered police system, where you have a lot of natural-born citizens being arrested for just doing something as simple as praying in public. You can't pray in public in some of these areas, according to testimonies being shared. Also being arrested for things you post on social media. If you just speak out about, if you have a reaction to the groomer gangs or this massive influx of migrants, they're being arrested for taking to social media and using certain words. And seemingly these words aren't seemingly offensive, but the government has decided the citizens are not allowed to react. You got to be very careful. They police the language very heavily over there, seemingly. So you're right. The mainstream media isn't really covering this. You have to follow, kind of social media accounts, be on certain platforms, follow alternative news to really get the tea about what's going on, and it's very disturbing.
I kind of felt that hesitation in Royfeld when he was here. Like, yes, he really wouldn't go there. It was super awkward because he acknowledged that it existed, but he wouldn't go anything deeper than that. And then he chose to leave the room when it started getting real specific. It was really awkward. I really felt like the blanket of censorship on the way that he responded emotionally and the things he said. Like he was like sitting on, being careful about every word. It was really weird. It sounded like talking to somebody from Saudi Arabia about women's rights or something. Like it was awkward.
See, and I kind of, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was really paying attention to the Royfield reaction as well. And I adore you, but it made me think well, maybe this is specific to maybe it's just really bad in the region where Ewan's at, but it's not really considered a common thought process by a lot, because Royfield almost felt like he was being attacked, the UK was being attacked.
He's black.
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, you're saying that he felt like the UK was being attacked. I would say he felt more like black people were being attacked. And I think that if there was any defensive tone in his voice, it was probably because he felt like, hey, it's not all black people. I don't think that he was defensive as a British man. I think he was defensive as a black man.
Well, but no, Nye had already had that conversation and addressed the room that she was talking specifically about Muslims.
I could sort of explain it to you because it's actually not a skin color thing. I think that he's actually just much more left wing, and I think that there's like essentially just like the U.S. a major culture war that's going on in the UK as well, and it's like by any means necessary we need to win. So a lot of people on the left aren't willing to actually address the grooming gang situation, and they are the type of people that would actively cover up the victims of this stuff. I'm not saying he would. I'm not for that. I'm definitely not putting those words in his mouth, by the way. But in that case, like I have seen tons of videos, and I know black men personally who would probably stand with the, flag wavers, waving the English flag because that is their culture. That's what they were raised in, and they don't want girls in their communities to be attacked like this. So, I mean, it's not really a racial thing. It's more of a political differences thing.
Can I jump in for just a quick sec? I love Roy Field's a great guy. I don't mean to disparage him in any way, but I think his hesitance and reluctance to address the issue head on is it illustrates actually a lot of the same themes and patterns that were discovered in the inquiry that was done in the grooming gangs cover up, and that the main one being that it's not always people. I think this is what's hard to accept is that a lot of the worst things happen with from people who are the best intentions. So it's not people like actively trying to cover things up, but there's a discomfort, particularly among those who are on the political left, with acknowledging ugly stuff